Welcome to the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, John Martin, and I have my usual guest with me, Dr. Garbinian, and
Robert Koenig.
you missed last month. That's why I can't get it.
I know how that short-term memory works.
Yeah, well, mine's shot. Anyway, since you had missed last month, I'm going to have you start with your variety of topics that you were listening on your radio as to what you think you should be interesting to our public.
Well, sure. I mean, I just follow the current events in this town and a few other surrounding towns. And, you know, as we approach the holidays, I wish both of you happy holidays, Merry Christmas,
Well, thank
and good cheer to your families. And it was sad to hear the other day that Worcester had a tragic fire where a firefighter that lived in Shrewsbury, unfortunately, didn't make it. So I know that there's been a fund set up for his daughter who's probably in the local area. I believe they live in the White City area from what I was following. It was a Coolidge.
She went to
I believe she
school,
went to
so-
Coolidge. And she's 9 years old, so hopefully, you know, she's going to get some good guidance and some money out of it,
She
really.
needs a family is what she needs.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the mother will take over and you know, we'll see what happens. But I know that there is a fund set up for that right now. And this is the time of year where there's a lot of drop boxes for you can get unopened gifts and drop them at different places for families that are in need. I know St. Anne's, right down on Route 9.
Route 9.
They do a lot of things in there. And I think they coordinate with Shrewsbury Youth and Family Services also to families in need also. So there's another place for charitable giving. So it is just sad that this is the time of year when, you know, people are turning the heat on in their houses. So you got to watch out for fire safety. Unfortunately, last night I heard that there was a fire in Westboro that, you know, initial reports were that it was a room heater or a space heater that started it. So you really need to be careful with these space heaters. They recommend if you're going to use a space heater, plug them directly into the outlet. Don't plug them into
Extension
an
cords are
extension
not
cord.
good, not good.
Yeah. So make sure that you're not overloading that circuit, because a lot of times your circuit breaker might not trip, especially if you have old, you know, wires in the house or even the screw-in fuses, which most people have upgraded from. But it's just one of those things that this is a time of year that you really need to watch out for fire safety and just regular safety. And it's also the time of year people make New Year's resolutions.
And don't keep them.
Well, and so what happens is all the gyms in town, people sign up, right? And this is the time of year, if you work for a company and they have an allocation for physical fitness, so a lot of people will sign up for a gym right now. They probably go for the first couple of months and then they drop off. So I've been seeing a big uptick at the Planet Fitness in White City East. From what I've heard also, there was a gym that shut down in the Greendale section of Worcester. I believe it was a World Gym, and they offered them a membership here at this one. It may have been the same owner that owns both places, although, you know, one was a World Gym and this one's a Planet Fitness. So I'm personally starting to see a lot of new faces coming into the gym there. And it's actually not that big of a gym. If you're going to stuff, you know, literally 400 people in there maybe at one time. I'm not sure what the capacity of the building is, but I think they may be butting up against it, because one, it is very difficult to find parking in that parking lot. If you go anytime past, say, 4 o'clock, my suggestion, pull into that parking lot, find the first parking lot spot you see, just pull it and just park and walk the rest of the way. If you start going all the way up to the front, there's people going to be crossing over the street, trying to get into whether it's Party City or Planet Fitness. So you really, best to just park and walk a little bit.
I know in the past you said that pedestrians crossing into the travel lanes in that same parking lot was a danger.
it's a danger because in Planet Fitness, they let you use your cell phones and your iPod and your earbuds. So people are coming in just with that item. They come in with their keys and their phone, and they're walking across, and a lot of times they're looking at their phone as they're going across on the street into the parking lot, into the building. So, and the same thing when they come out, right after you finish your workout. Oh, who's been texting me for the last?
So you're telling me that they're walking on the road, looking at
Yes.
their device.
I see it all the time, constantly.
That is not very wise.
No. So it's going to be interesting to see how that gym and that parking lot handle this type of increase of traffic and population, because really, their business model is a $10 a month package. So none of these other gyms can do a $10 a month package. So many people sign up. I think there's literally 4,000 to 5,000 members, and maybe only 10% go on a regular basis. So we'll see how that works out. Oh, look,
Just interrupt for a second, Rob. That means that drivers should be extra cautious in that area in operating a motor vehicle. If you hit somebody, even though they're not looking, you are still at fault.
yes, and I see people fly into that parking lot from the South Quinsigamond side.
Right.
They go by Firestone, and it's kind of a curve there, and
Yes.
they can't see the pedestrians ready to cross. There are a couple of crosswalks, but nobody really. The drivers normally just are kind of flying by. And the other thing that happens, there are a lot of people parking the fire lane. They're either waiting for somebody to come out, or they're. The big one was people running into Party City. Oh, I just have to make a quick return. So they leave their car in the fire lane, and I've seen a few of them just left on. And that was even more ridiculous. So the police are, circling through there as they can.
Right. But how much can they do?
How much can they do
can they do?
in that period of time when they just really, it's just a short, run through there. But when they park in the fire lane, to have two cars be able to go by at the same time is almost impossible.
It is impossible.
And you have pedestrians too to watch out for. So I encourage people, do not park in the fire lane for any period of time. There is a back door to the Planet Fitness that people should also be considered using, because that would be a better drop-off spot. There's less traffic back there. If you're just going to drop somebody off and pick them up later, maybe Planet Fitness can eventually direct people to use the back for drop-offs.
You're talking about parking lots. I've noticed of the past 2 or 3 years that no matter where I go to park a car, no matter what shopping area, there are more and more cars that do not park between the lines in a relatively straight fashion. I see more cars, more and more instances of automobiles that will park right on the line or right over the line, and they're not straight. They are at an angle.
Yeah.
So basically, they're taking up 2 parking spots, and they don't have their wheels pointed straight. Especially on these bigger vans with the big wheels, they have their wheels turned so that the front of the wheel is sticking out at the next parking spot, so you really cannot effectively use that parking spot.
Yeah, it's a very, very selfish act, because they don't realize there are other people that need to come in there and park after they get
Right.
there.
Oh yeah, you can see what they've done. They've just pulled right in
Yep.
and stopped. And I'm to the habit of if I pull into a spot and I don't see that I am straight, or if I am not more or less centered between the 2 lines, I'll back up a little bit and come in straight and get far enough into that so that the rear end of my car is not going to be blocking anybody coming down the lane, or anybody that's going to be backing out next to me. And it won't be making it tight for them.
Yeah, I mean, those are marked for a specific reason,
Right,
and
those
people
are-
need to
right.
be parking in
But
them.
people aren't. I see it, the incidence of that is increasing, no matter where I go. It's just not even Shrewsbury.
I was in Shaw's the other day. I parked in their parking lot in the lines, and I saw a car that was on, and there was nobody in the car. And it was in a legitimate parking spot, but it was on. And I was like, oh, well, they just run in.
It's saying, come and steal me. That's what it's saying.
Well, a
Come
lot
and
of
steal
times, no. Well, the keys can lock. Maybe you just
That's
leave
right,
the leave the
right,
key,
right,
the
right,
one
right,
key in there
right,
on,
right.
and you take the car's clicker with you, and they can lock the doors.
Right.
But when I came out of Shaw's, the car was still there running. And I know that for trucks, there is a 5-minute idle, regulation,
Right.
because that's pollution.
It most certainly is.
That's air pollution, and that's destroying our ozone,
So it's a waste of fuel.
waste
too,
of
as well.
fuel.
Yeah.
And somebody can see that car as a target if it's on and there's nobody in it. So that's a sad one that I see all the time.
So tell us something about the new arrangement with the dog catchers.
I believe, from what I've heard, that Leona is going to be retiring I believe it was the end of the year, so it's coming up pretty quick. And then they were going to regionalize between 3 towns. I believe it was Westboro, Grafton, and Shrewsbury, where they're going to run 3 animal control officers at different times of the day. So you'd have, your coverage for all 3 shifts. First shift, second shift, and maybe that's going to be done on a rotating basis so that not all of them have to work night shift all the time or second shift. So that's going to be an interesting change in this area. They're mostly needed if another dog bites a dog. Like today, there was a dog bite inside of Petco, a Rottweiler. Somebody took a Rottweiler inside of Petco and it bit another dog. So the police department got called.
Right.
They went down, they took the report, and if there was an on-duty animal control officer, they could have gone down there, got all the information, because I believe that dog is required to be quarantined
Yes.
after something like that happens. So, there's going to be a delay because maybe she wasn't on at that time, and so you got to be real careful when you take your dogs in, because they let you take your dog in Petco, and then actually that liquor store next door, they let you take your dog in there too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just as a courtesy, because hey, if you were shopping next door, we want you to come in and shop here.
Okay.
So you get, but people who have, Rottweilers, Pit Bulls, German Shepherds really need to be careful, because those are,
They tend to be aggressive.
yes, and check your homeowner's insurance, because a lot of times, if they don't know, your insurance company doesn't cover on some of those dogs. So you got to be careful on the liability aspects. With the Rottweilers, I believe, was also included there. And then the other topic I was going to bring up was some good news, state funding for the Route 20 area that I heard just came through, I believe it was yesterday. About $45 million is going to be put towards sewers and water down the Route 20 area where the new market basket
Okay.
is going to be put in where the old drive-in was. So hopefully that will, help out with some of the traffic issues that they expect to have down there. But that's going to cause a lot of traffic. That's going to be, because a market basket seems to bring in traffic from other towns. Because
They definitely will.
yeah,
It's a very popular establishment.
destination, especially for people who don't have.
When are they going to start constructing that?
I'm not sure of the timelines at all, but I know, this infrastructure is probably the things that they're going to need to do first.
Right, they would. Okay.
Yeah. And then I also think that there's, I just got an email update on the water department is going to be doing some more, what they call the ice pigging of the lines,
Right.
North Quinsigamon area, and also in the Glavin Center area where the new proposed,
The school's
the new
gonna
school's
go,
going to be.
right.
They had a nice show on with the selectmen and the water commissioner, and they went through the new water treatment plant. Kind of interesting. They went room to room,
Oh,
saw the
interesting.
equipment.
Because that's online now.
Oh yeah, it's been online for October, I think.
But there's been a heavy chlorine smell in the water from what I've been listening to.
They
and
they
hearing.
changed the chemicals a little bit, and they mentioned that in the show, because I don't know how that's going to work on your glass of water, but I know at the end, they talked about what was the town expecting right now. Nothing. Because the problem is in the distribution pipes, which are still bleeding out more minerals all the time. And so at least they are taking more magnesium out of the water. we didn't have anything coming out before. Now they do have something there to capture some of it. I don't think anytime soon we're going to see a difference in the number of times we get colored water, because every time a pipe breaks, which happened to me just a couple weeks ago, no matter where it is in town, I get dark water at my house. As long as it's north of Central, that water distribution gets all screwed up.
Well, they recommend flushing the system from the outside spigot closest to the water connection meter, because that's where it connects. So if it's your front of the house,
Right.
use that outdoor spigot so it doesn't get all tied up through the washing machine, the heater, the hot water. That's what's scary, because I think a lot of people are replacing their hot water heaters or their washing machines a lot sooner than they've had to because of what's going on with the water situation here.
My washing machine is due in my house next week.
Oh, you get one?
I'm getting one.
Yeah.
But I don't think it wore out. It was just unusual wear out of at the bottom of the washing machine. There's a connection for water pipes that come off the wall, and it was leaking down the bottom. It was leaking in the wall, had it all replaced, but then it was still leaking at the bottom. So we said, well, okay, the washing machine's over 20 years old. We got our money's worth of that one.
Yeah. Oh,
That's
yeah.
a good lifespan, John.
That
That's an
is.
excellent lifespan.
So we're getting another one.
I noticed that back in October, the manganese was really collecting in everything that we would put out. Like if I took out a glass of wine, just let it sit there for 5 or 10 minutes, you could see the particles.
Really? Okay. Wow.
And then it seemed to disappear for a while. It seemed to lessen. I noticed this past week it's come back again. So there's a filter on my kitchen sink. I took it off. Black.
Really? Ooh,
Black.
yeah.
So everything that we drink, we have a special, we have two big containers of filters in it. So we put the water in there and just let it settle down. Make the coffee out of that. If I'm going to drink something, I'll have one of those in the refrigerator. So you just don't know what you're putting into your body, but they're claiming that it is not at any levels close to what's going to be harmful to the human body.
Yeah.
I hope that they're correct, because we're still ingesting it no matter what. Even with the filters, some of it does get through.
Yeah. I mean, I see in the supermarkets and all the ones I go to, there are a lot of people buying bottled water in this
Right.
town. And that's, another added expense
Right.
that they're incurring.
And our water rates have gone up too. So you're paying more for a product that you cannot use, or you don't feel safe and secure with.
And you have to pay for your own flushing, because
Right.
you're going to flush your system out through the front spigot out of the front of the house.
Right.
I don't know how you're going to do that in the winter. But
I don't know. You're right. In fact, when I had that problem in October, I called them and they said, flush out your, don't run the water inside the house, do it outside. So I ran the spigot in the backyard. I have two, one in the front, one in the back. I ran it in the back. And I asked them, I said, does this make you do a flush on? They said, no. So I did the one in the back. And it was like a week later, I was in the front of the house, and I had just done some cleaning of my gutters, and I wanted to run that, some of the leaves that fall into the ground. I just wanted to wash it away from it spattered on the foundation of the house. So I hooked up the hose there, and I hadn't used that spigot since maybe in August, just a little bit. All black ran for 5 minutes. I
Yeah.
couldn't believe it, the amount of dirty water that.
well, they were doing some construction up on Main Street there, right?
Right, and they said
Digging
that
down
could be
there.
right,
Yeah, that's probably where it came from.
yeah, so.
I
We just don't
I
know.
have Facebook, and someone sent me a picture of their tub of water. They thought it was chocolate pudding. It was that dark.
I saw that picture on it, yeah.
It's amazing. Mine don't get that dark usually, but just sort of tan. And it goes into my toilets. My toilets now has these flushing things that only use a little bit of water at a time. And so even though you get the break and you get the dirty water in the reserve area, it takes 4 or 5 flushes before you get it all out of there. Because you can't do it in one flush.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I worry because I installed it's called an in-toilet bidet. So you turn on the water, you can't really see what's going on. But they're becoming popular.
Oh, really?
I mean, in Europe, they're very popular.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Very popular.
Right,
But
right.
there's more and more of them are becoming popular here. You know, it actually conserves TP.
Right.
So it's just a much better, cleanlier way to do things, in my opinion. But that's just another appliance where dirty water could run through.
That's exactly right.
You know?
One more thing you have to be careful of.
Yeah.
And one more thing you may have to replace if it gets severe.
Yeah.
So I wanted to start a continuous topic about schools. We need to do something to go from a C-level district to an A-level district, which is what the requirements are. But we're not talking about it, not a bit. So I think we need to, I discussed already having a vocational school in Shrewsbury so that we could get some of those kids out of high school. I mean, they're all high school students. So that right now they said the problem in the high school is really crowded and it's demoralizing the teachers. They got to run around and getting into classrooms they don't normally teach in because the place is packed.
Let me ask you this, Charles. There's a bunch of communities, I think, that are starting to go to a different model grade classification, basically by eliminating the middle schools. So you go in the elementary schools up to 7th, and then you go into high school 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Or, you know, some sort of combination.
All right. In other words, they're doing another change.
Yeah.
I really believe all these changes amount to, when you look at the final analysis, it doesn't make any difference. I really don't, because when I was going through, I can remember having primary school, grammar school, junior high school, and high school. They just keep on redefining these structures and moving things along and like putting it out that this will be better. But with all the changes we see in education, they really don't know if it is going to make it better. They say it's going to make it better, and they just keep on changing. And this happens in so many different parts of the educational structure. When we talk about math curriculum, and I keep on talking about math curriculum for some reason, I've seen so many changes there. And every time they make a change, they say this is going to be better. But they haven't really stayed on whatever what they're moving from. They haven't never stayed on that long enough to test to see how good that is before they move on to something that's different. And when they move on to something new, they really don't know if that is really any better than what they previously had.
I mean, just in my mind, it just eliminates having 10 schools in town to, you know, cutting it back to like 6.
But still, you're going to have to handle the same number of students. And I really think that it is, if you have a greater number of smaller schools, I think it's better for the students socially.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way, there are going to be fewer teachers that are going to be able to, or have to get to know fewer students. So none of the students are going to really be able to, what I call, hide out. When schools gets too large, a lot of these students get lost.
Yeah.
And a lot of them like that because they hide out and they stay out of everybody's sight and they just become part of the crowd and they just, quote, get through, unquote.
Yeah.
And that's not the purpose of education.
No, because really, the schools don't want to hold back kids.
They
They don't
can't.
have to, because it's going to cost them
Right.
another year of funding.
And that's very sad.
Yeah.
And they're compromising academic credibility, and I see that all the time. I was talking to a student last night who told me that she never mastered how to work with decimals or fractions. And she's taking statistics with me.
Well, you know, a lot of times, and this is college level, right? So you're already at college. A lot of times they require the kids to take, remedial before they get into college, whether it's a math
Right.
track or an English track. Maybe summer school, but in the college before they go into their freshman
Correct.
year. So it didn't even.
If
She-
somehow
she squeaked by.
Somehow she got into this class. I don't know how that happened. Another thing that we see a lot of is the philosophy of the way they advertise these colleges today. We will get you through. We'll get you through your way. And I'm saying, is this really how we're going to sell things? It's almost like selling an automobile. We're going to have this automobile that's your car, that's specifically designed just for you, rather than saying you're becoming educated. This is a structure of academic thought that you have to master. You truly master this, then we give you a degree. Then you are somewhat educated with some type of authentic certification. And I think that's what we're missing in today's society. And amongst all the changes they keep on going through, it's always a continuous state of flux. One thing they always do, John, is having curriculum development.
We have somebody in the front office
Right, it's
in
just-
charge of that.
right,
And it
it's just-
changes all the
right,
time.
right,
Yeah.
right. And they're always, they haven't decided what they're going to teach these people. They haven't got that mastered out after all these years. We have to keep on revising and developing curriculum. I can't understand that.
Well, I remember when Andre was going to school 20 years ago, they used to get like fourth grade teachers from all the schools together for a meeting, and they were trying to agree that they'd all teach certain subject at the same year in the fourth grade, so that when they went on to the middle school, they would have this topic.
Right.
And I know after that, they got together and decided what they're going to teach in first grade, second grade, third grade, for all of them, so that they'd be tracking, so that there wouldn't be any holes in their learning. And I don't think they've ever caught on that not everybody can follow the rules, not even the teachers.
That's right. Oh, absolutely, John. You're correct.
So we're about running out of time. I just wanted to pose a new idea, and that would be to get rid of the South Street property because we can't sell it. It's a worthless piece of property.
The Allen property.
Huh?
The Allen property.
The Allen property, it's got these runoffs through it. I believe it's now just 4 acres usable, buildable land, the rest of it's in the gully somewhere. And so I'm suggesting that they take it off the market and they put in like 4 small buildings for foreign language instruction for special education kids or for people just moving in the neighborhood from a foreign country. They allow it now. It's part of the options is to teach somebody in their foreign language in all subjects so that they can keep up. One of the problems they have in elementary schools is the kids come there, they don't understand the language, and then the next grade, they don't understand what they're supposed to have learned last year. So it's a situation where we got to get our hands around it and have a situation where we can train them in the right year in something that they can understand. And so you think about it out there, get rid of that white elephant we got over on South Street and put something more viable there. Good night, folks.